It is disheartening to address a 10-year-old murderer. But it's high time we stop underestimating the potential of kids. The reality is horrifying, and the story of this 10-year-old will keep you up all night. What would have brewed this kid's aggression into a potential murder? What could possibly be the reason behind a 10-year-old's aggression? Let's dig into detail about Joseph Hall's life. This story is about Joseph Hall, son of Jeffrey Hall and ex-wife Letitia Neal. Joseph was born on June 19, 2000, in Riverside, California. In 2004, Jeffrey Hall was provided custody of both his children, Joseph and Shirley, due to their mother's wild and undependable behavior. Jeffrey Hall had 3 more kids in his latter marriage with Krista McCary. Unemployment was a hard thud on Jeffrey as the breadwinner for a huge family. Being among the workers on the dole, Jeffrey Hall was struggling to provide for the family. Although he had a significant role in the national social movement, his blame for being a redundant plumber was put on Jews and non-whites, leading him to believe in the ideologies of the Nazi Party strongly. The word Nazi jogs our memory about the barbarous Hitler and the hard time he gave the people. Jeffrey Hall, the regional leader of the National Social Movement, also known as NSM or Nazi Party, led a rally near a day laborer site in 2009. Jeff would often hold meetings with the members at his house in the presence of his kids. Certainly this kind of meeting does not carry any morals for the kids to learn from. Hate speeches and slogans against non-whites were a constant theme. Jeff's unemployment had made him abusive to Joseph and his second wife, Krista McCary. Joseph's stepmother, Krista, details that Joseph was beaten up by his father every day for being too loud or getting in his way. How loud is too loud for a 10-year-old boy? He would kick and punch the little child several times in the back. Every villain has an emotional story in the background, and this 10-year-old is no exception. Joseph was very aggressive and verbally abusive from a very young age. Joseph has been expelled from 6 schools for harming students and teachers. But this brutality that existed within him was probably created instead of inherited. For example, rage cannot be truly inherited. He had stabbed a teacher with a pen when he was only 5. Later, he had strangled a teacher with a phone cord. Reference on what led him to these violent attacks is unclear. However, Joseph reportedly had ADHD, and after switching to 6 schools in 7 years, Joseph was homeschooled. Considering how kids with ADHD are supposed to be cared for, and accepting how even normal children's care was denied to Joseph makes his actions look circumstantial. His grandmother says that Joseph has been this rude from the very beginning. Well, what is the beginning for a 10-year-old child subjected to brutal violence from his father every day? Letitia Neal reportedly consumed heroin, meth, LSD, marijuana, and alcohol when she was pregnant with Joseph. How could anybody expect Joseph to be a calm and sweet young boy when all he had to endure was abuse and domestic violence? At the age where children are supposed to be taken good care of emotionally and physically, Joseph was denied both, left with an unstable, abusive father who spread hate within the society. Joseph's actions, in a way, reflect the brutalities he had to go through. Joseph was subjected to inexhaustible torture in an age where kids should be bound with immense love and care. While fathers became heroes for other 10-year-olds, Jeffrey Hall was the villain in his child's life. And one fine day, people woke up to the news of Jeffrey Hall's death. Haters of his neo-Nazi beliefs would have wanted to get rid of him for the part of hate he spreads among people, but no hater would want the killer to be his son. The NSM group recalls Jeffrey bragging about teaching his 10-year-old to use night vision equipment and to shoot a gun. What is this guy short of common sense or basketball? However, Jeffrey's verdict on handing a gun to his son over a basketball was one of the last few choices he made in his lifetime. On May 11, 2011, 32-year-old Jeffrey Hall returned home from a neo-Nazi gathering and allegedly drunk. Joseph, who recognized this as the right set of circumstances, retrieved a revolver from his father's room and returned it to his father, who fell asleep on the couch and fatally shot him in the head behind his left ear at point-blank range. Jeffrey Hall had once told the Los Angeles Times, "I want a white nation. I don't hide what I am, and I don't water that down." The same blood runs in Joseph Hall, no question about it. He didn't hide what he is nor water it down. "I shot Dad," said the 10-year-old to his stepmother, Krista, who rushed to the scene startled by hearing the rifle shots. She immediately called 911 and reported that his son shot Jeff. Joseph's villain was dead. As per records and Joseph's statement, the night before Jeffrey Hall's murder, he had threatened to remove all smoke detectors and burn down the family's house while they were asleep. How was a 10-year-old boy, being the eldest in the family, supposed to sleep peacefully after having that added to his nightmares? I'd rather say he took responsibility and eradicated the threat effectively. Even though Joseph had shot his dad, it was a bit hazy if he knew he had done something wrong. For a kid like Joseph, who had no guidance on right and wrong, he had his reasons. After all, what part of his life was right? Did he deserve all the wrongs that happened in his life? Joseph was taken into custody for interrogation. During the interrogation, authorities discovered that Child Protective Services had issued 23 reports of alleged abuse, neglect, and poor living conditions at Hall's residence. In a way, this murder can be claimed as the consequence of the authorities' delay in serving justice. When the police officers investigated Jeffrey's house as part of the case, they found dirty clothes and empty beer bottles lying around the house. The bathroom smelled of pungent urine, and the pillows, mattresses, and blankets were soiled and dirty. The police were shocked to see weapons like the .357 Magnum were easily accessible to children. Considering that the oldest of their children was 10-year-old Joseph, all other four, including Shirley, come under an age group of less than 10. And this environment, which lacks boundaries, is seemingly dangerous and unsafe to be called home. A murder case on children is the rarest case to deal with. Although it's disheartening to address a 10-year-old murderer, that doesn't change anything about it. His actions may not be justified, but what about the scenarios which led to those actions? What about the people who created those scenarios? While both sides had relevant arguments to make, this case was a difficult one to look at. Judge Leonard issued the sentence. Although Joseph was 13 at the time of the trial and 10 while committing the crime, Joseph was convicted of a second-degree murderer in killing his father, Jeffrey Hall, and sentenced to 10 years of life in a California juvenile facility. Joseph would be released when he was 23 years old. Considering Joseph Hall's case, Senate Bill 1052 was introduced. This bill modifies crimes related to involuntary servitude and human trafficking, and establishes an affirmative defense for human trafficking victims. This case also brought attention to kids' mental health problems, analyzing and providing better growing environments for kids. It is a stark truth of the reality of the cruel treatments and abuse children undergo. This brutality might turn the softest of hearts into the cruelest of killers. So what does that say about the future generations? This cruelty might create some of the worst monsters in the world. In a world that is already suffering enough.